September 2018. Veryovkina Massif, Abkhazia. Hidden deep in the Caucasus Mountains lies Veryovkina Cave, the deepest known cave on Earth. Its vertical shafts and twisting passages drop over 2,200 meters into darkness. Fewer people have reached the bottom than have been to space. That month, a Russian caving team led by Pavel Demidov returned to the cave for the second time that year. They had already measured its record-breaking depth months earlier. This time, they brought two newcomers, British cave photographer Robbie Schoen and his assistant Jeff Wade. The mission had two goals: photograph the cave's incredible formations and collect biological samples of tiny species that survive in total darkness. Exploring Veryovkina requires extreme preparation. Each person carried over 30 kilos of gear, wrapped in thermal layers to survive near-freezing conditions. Reaching the bottom took 4 days, with 6 underground camps set up along the route for eating, drying gear, and resting. The descent was grueling, a 32-meter vertical shaft at the entrance, followed by thousands of meters of muddy, narrow passages and water-filled squeezes. After 4 days, they reached the deepest camp. The plan: spend a week exploring and photographing the turquoise terminal lake at the cave's lowest point. For 6 days, everything went smoothly. Day 7. 2 members, Roman and Natalia, had left early to catch a flight. While making their way up, they heard a deep, unnatural roar. Moments later, thousands of liters of water exploded into the cave. They radioed a warning to the team at the bottom. Flood pulses weren't rare in Veryovkina. They usually passed quickly. The group at the bottom assumed this would be the same and continued their work. They were wrong. Without warning, a torrent erupted from a fissure just meters from their camp. Water levels surged rapidly, flooding the chamber. Within minutes, the floor was gone, replaced by a cold, rising pool. There was no time to pack, no time to plan. If they didn't move immediately, they would drown. Robbie Schoen acted first. He suited up, clipped into the rope line, and began climbing toward higher ground. Wade followed close behind. The current pressed against them. Water swallowed the roots they had descended days earlier. Breathing became difficult in the rising spray. Hands numbed in the freezing flow. They climbed for hours, fighting exhaustion and the pull of the flood. Finally, they reached a drier section where the water diverted away. For the first time, they could stop. Minutes later, headlamps appeared. Wade had made it up too. But they didn't know if the Russian cavers had survived. Waiting wasn't an option. The water was still rising. They pushed upward, climbing through flooded vertical shafts and slippery constrictions. After several hours, they reached Camp 1900, 1,900 meters below the surface. Then, flickers of light appeared in the darkness. The rest of the Russian team emerged, wet, exhausted, but alive. They had barely escaped the flood surge. This wasn't the end. They still couldn't ascend. Water blocked the upper passages. The team huddled in Camp 1900 for 20 hours, waiting for the flood to recede. When the current finally eased, they began the long climb out. It took 4 more days to reach the surface. Against all odds, all 9 cavers survived. In the deepest cave on Earth, where escape routes stretch for kilometers straight up, a sudden flood could have sealed every passage. This time, the mountain gave them a way out. 2001. An obscure blog appears online. It's written by a man calling himself Ted, documenting his exploration of a remote cave with a friend he refers to only as B. The entries begin innocently enough. In December 2000, the 2 men descend into a small chamber deep inside a cave, accessible only by crawling through tight, winding passages. There they find something strange. A narrow hole just a few inches wide, with a constant howling wind blowing out from it. To Ted, this meant one thing. There was an unexplored chamber beyond. Somewhere no one had been before. January 27, 2001. They return with tools to widen the hole. Progress is painfully slow. The space is so tight that only one can work at a time. After 2 days, the hole is only slightly larger. But the cave has changed. The howling wind is louder now, joined by a deep, constant rumble. They tell themselves it must be traffic on a nearby highway, but deep down they know the road isn't busy enough for that. February 10th. They bring B's dog, hoping she might crawl through and explore the tunnel beyond. Instead, she refuses to go anywhere near it, whining and pulling back. That day, B hears a new sound from inside the hole, like stone grinding against stone. Ted assumes it's just the drill echoing. They keep working. By the end of the day, the hole is large enough to fit a head through. Then, March 3rd, a scream. Ted describes it as the most terrible scream I have ever heard, echoing from deep inside the tunnel. They seal the hole with rocks and wait. Hours pass in silence. Eventually, they resume work. Finally, the hole is big enough for a person. Ted volunteers to go first. It's an agonizing squeeze, arms pinned to his sides, inching forward in the dark. He emerges into a surprisingly large chamber. Against one wall is a perfectly round stone, too round to be natural. On another wall, strange markings, figures surrounding a symbol. He squeezes back to tell B. They agree to return with a third person, Joe, April 14th. Joe and Ted prepare to enter. But Ted hits his head on the rock ceiling, suffering a concussion. Joe goes in alone. When he returns much later than expected, his face is pale, his body shaking. He only says, "I don't feel good." He never speaks to them again. Ted and B return April the 28th with more gear, a camcorder and a two-way phone. Ted crawls back into the chamber, but then, the grinding noise again. He stands too fast, smashing his helmet into the rock ceiling. His headlamp dies. He cracks a glow stick, scanning the chamber. The round stone has moved, now sitting on the phone cable, severing it. Something is in there with him. A wet, rotting stench fills the air. He feels something crawling behind him. Ted doesn't look. He crawls fast through the tunnel toward B. As they climb to the surface, the rope they're on begins to pull back. Something is tugging it from below. They cut it loose. Weeks later, Ted posts one last update. For my family and friends who are reading this, be at peace. I will conquer this cave. I will return and update this website immediately. See all of you soon with a lot of answers. It's the last thing Ted ever writes. Over the years, the story spreads across the internet. Theories explode. Some say Ted met a supernatural creature. Others think the stone was a portal to another world. Then, years later, Ted himself reappears in an interview, revealing the truth. The supernatural elements, the moving stone, the creature, all fiction. The story was a creative project, inspired by real caving, designed to sound authentic. But real or not, Ted the Caver became one of the internet's most enduring cave legends, a chilling reminder that even in fiction, caves make the perfect setting for fear.